Welcome back to Cyber Chronicles, your portal to the ever-evolving world of tech and IT. Today, we dive into the dynamic realm of technological advancement, from the global connectivity of Starlink to the groundbreaking AI innovations like Devon, the software development AI.
We covered the transformative impact of AI on education, exploring the frontiers where innovation meets transformation. So, whether you're a seasoned tech pro or simply curious about the digital frontier, join us as we navigate through the waves of change.
This is Cyber Chronicles, where every episode unveils a new chapter in the story of progress. Welcome back to the podcast. Today we have several guests varying for a podcast about change in IT and change in the career of cybersecurity as a whole. I'm Landon. I introduced myself in the last podcast. If you want a longer introduction, go for that. But a couple things is I'm going for pen testing and red teaming. I started out kind of wanting to go for blue teaming, but I've kind of switched my ways, so we'll see how that goes. And I'm, researching in cybersecurity, learning things every day.
Hey, I'm Nate, the secondary host to this podcast, and I'm an aspiring security researcher and technical enthusiast.
Hi, I'm John. I am new to the IT field. I've been studying it and just interested in it since I was very young, and recently got into the industry. And I'm hoping to get into a network admin type of role in the coming years.
Hey, my name is Chance Reddick. I just got into the IT field about a year ago. I'm not exactly sure what I want to do, but I'm looking into purple teaming, or at least something with networking, somewhere in that range. But yeah.
Hello, my name is Ricky, and I just got into IT cybersecurity, I would say about a couple months ago. And what I want to do in IT and cybersecurity is pen test.
Awesome. So we're starting out this podcast will formally be named as probably something as along the lines of change in IT, but we've got varying views about how it will change, kind of the future of IT, and then some of the interesting topics that kind of come up. But the first thing I want to get started was, I guess, space in IT and how that relates. I know we've got like the Space Force now, so like even the military is going into it. I'm sure they got some cool spatial tech or something. I don't know. But Starlink, so Elon Musk's SpaceX Starlink, kind of like the ISP, of space. And I don't know if this will eventually take over. I know they're sending up a bunch of new satellites and trying to use these to get, connections to more rural places. Just kind of wanted to see what you guys thought about that. How will this change the IT field if this kind of comes the one-stop all of ISPs?
Well, I don't think it will become the one-stop shop for ISPs, because when you look at Elon's plan, at least last I checked, which, to be fair, it's been a moment, but last I checked, the number of satellites that they're wanting to put up into space is unreal. There would be so many satellites that would be hard to differentiate the satellites from the stars in the sky.
Is that really
yes,
a statistic?
Like genuinely, it would, because
look up into the Matrix.
So they're so they sit in lower Earth orbit, so they're not that far out in space.
Which makes sense.
And so because they're pretty decently large, you're going to see these little lights floating through the air constantly. The only reason you would know that they're different is because they'd be moving, unlike the stars, or at least I think they would be. I'd have to check the. I don't know enough about how
probably
stuff stays in orbit. Because the idea with satellites is you're supposed to get them into a spot where they're basically falling with gravity at the exact same speed as the Earth rotates, so they don't actually move much, but they're always moving.
Yeah, and I know they want to shoot up a bunch, and I'm sure they've already sent a ton up as far as, because I've looked at Elon Musk's statistics, and they've sent up a ton.
Yeah.
Because they've got, obviously they have it going now, so they have to keep sending them up. I know that was a concern for looking up. I don't know if like I would see that in my time as far as how long. I don't know. Elon's wild. Who knows? We'll
Mm-hmm.
see. But I did know that Starlink does have a couple of caveats. It's good, but there is a couple of concerns. If
Yeah.
it was to become the one-stop shop, you know, because it just eventually gets that much better and then it's that much cheaper. Um, if everyone starts buying into it, then it becomes like the is this a monopoly? Because I mean, who else? It takes a lot of money to send that many satellites up into space. I don't know how much it is per satellite, but I'm assuming it's a lot.
It does, but the U.S. government gives them grants to do
Yeah. So then again, monopoly.
it.
Because then the
Just
U.S.
because you get a
helps
grant
them.
doesn't mean you're a monopoly. But and we do allow monopolies. Monopolies are actually totally legal. There's just legal and illegal ways of becoming a monopoly.
Yeah, I mean like
Um,
McDonald's is technically a fast food monopoly, but then
no,
again it's like
they're a
it's a
huge player.
food
They're not a
chain.
monopoly.
Yeah, I know. I'm not saying it's a monopoly, but it could become monopoly because who else is doing something like Starlink?
Yeah.
Nothing that I can think
Um,
of, so nothing that's actually working.
not to that scale. No, I mean satellite internet isn't new by any stretch, but it's always been very slow. Whereas Starlink has the benefit of it's actually very high speed internet. Um, the downside, and it's one that I don't know how they would overcome, because you can't with existing technology, to the best of my knowledge, is latency. Because those radio waves only travel at a certain speed, and that the reason that the latency for Starlink is so high is it takes time for that signal to bounce up to the satellite and then be transferred wherever it needs to go and then bounce back to its endpoint.
Yeah.
Um,
That's what I was gonna
and
say. With latency,
that's not really something you can just throw more satellites at and make it go away.
yeah. I was gonna say, like, with latency involved, right? Is like I don't think there's, at least with current technology, any way for them to monopolize ISPs directly, because a lot of the bigger companies are like, yeah, we need super high speed all the time, so we're just gonna use fiber, right? It's like
Yeah.
there's no way to for bigger companies to buy into satellite
So you don't
at,
think
at the current thing.
that Starlink would become an and when I say monopoly, I mean like I just feel like all of the places that they're trying to reach right now, the more rural places, they want this to be a bigger thing because it's I mean it's they could reach you with a little bit cheaper alternatives because
Yeah.
I mean now there's places that even your closest ISP can't reach because it's just
Hmm.
too in the middle of nowhere. But
Yeah.
if they get it to all these places, then it becomes much cheaper because they have a lot obviously more resources coming in. And then it's like, okay, you either pay this amount and get, you know, this amount of speeds, or you pay from your ISP, which is much more. And that even comes into play with their priority. Starlink has priority now, which I can read the stats off here. Priority, and it says data packet monthly costs are 140 for 40 gigabytes, 250 for 1 terabyte, and 500 for 2 terabytes. Um,
So it's data capped.
yeah, so their
Okay.
data cat, which $500 for 2 terabytes is like per month.
That's
It,
rough.
A
it
whole lot, a
definitely
whole
gets
lot of.
definitely expensive for sure.
That's very rough.
Definitely.
Like I could see them being extremely popular in rural areas, and that makes good sense to me. Other than again the latency thing, but that doesn't affect things like, for example, streaming from Netflix, or it doesn't really affect things like sending an email, watching YouTube video. Where it starts to matter is things like live streaming, gaming, and commercial slash enterprise, um, stuff that your average Joe in rural West Virginia just frankly is unbothered by
Is
and not
targeting.
not has
Yeah.
any interaction with. So, but they already have competition of a sort, from a lot of companies, but I'm going to say T-Mobile just because they're one of the bigger players in it right now. Where they are actually, instead of running a cable line or a fiber line to your home, they give you a router that uses their cell towers. Now, of course, there's still rural areas that still doesn't help, and Starlink absolutely has them, completely because they have no alternative. But with the proliferation of this cellular network, home network thing that they're doing, that definitely competes meaningfully with Starlink.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I have people that have used Starlink before and said it's actually really good
Mhm.
out in rural areas where they can't get internet otherwise. So that in that regard, where it's like the current uh with like the current what's the word ISPs and like they can't get into super rural areas. Like I think Starlink already kind of more or less has a monopoly in that sense, right? It's like all those super rural areas that won't get touched by ISPs. You were saying T-Mobile maybe, and maybe like cellular signals, right? But even then, um, Starlink will be a better option if they want faster speeds, right?
Yeah.
And they don't care as much about the latency. So
Mhm.
I think in that regard they do, but I don't think it'll ever get to the point of like, big
True.
businesses or uh, like home networks that are like in cities. Like they'll probably not use Starlink.
No. I mean, we're already transitioning to fiber in the home. We're
Yeah,
not so much in the home, but to the premises. Uh,
Could you imagine the
and
speeds?
you just
yeah,
satellite just can't compete with that. Period.
yeah. I just can't
Like,
Yeah,
right now.
there's
that's true.
nothing it can do.
And
Even
like
even not just right
streamers,
now. Like, hmm?
streamers have no. There's literally no way that a streamer. I know. I mean, I know full time streamers. Unless you're like, I mean, streaming from your van, you're moving around. Starlink has mobile options, but there's also you have to pay like $600 for a standard recommended hardwire. So like the satellite thing that you put on top of your car van, and then for priority, so like a better 5 terabytes is 5 grand a month, and then $2,500 just to get the priority. It gets expensive.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. Um, but I just think I don't think they'll ever truly become a monopoly. I think they will always be, unless some other big player comes into the scene. Um, I think they will always be a top contender for rural areas, um, and for maybe some regions of the world where that infrastructure just doesn't really exist, because there's no in some ways it's easier to launch a satellite into space than to dig trenches to every home over a rural area and connect it with physical wire and then connect that back to a data center somewhere.
Yeah, I mean it's a good idea for sure. Ricky or Chance,
So
do you guys have any?
I'm not really
What do you see
familiar with
for upcoming?
the Starlink stuff. I haven't really read too much about it.
I mean,
It's all new to me.
I'm doing some research. I'm trying to figure out like how it could affect like human life, like life on planet Earth. Like, is there any cons to sending all these satellites up to space? How can
Walking
that affect
outside,
our life?
you walk outside to sunbathe and you get satellite tans.
That's what I'm seeing though. Like
the
it can mess
signal
with like
reflectors
sunlight stuff
reflect the
like
rays back to you, and you get instantly crisp.
yeah, and it also opens up another thing for like attackers to attack
Yeah, I mean,
as far as cybersecurity.
that's a. I know. I mean, I've heard of uh, actually big shout out to Hack SpaceCon. I knew several of us in here. I believe everyone in us. Maybe Ricky, are you going?
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah.
But anyways, going to Hack SpaceCon, I know that there will be, and I don't remember the name, but I could put this in the description or somewhere in the Discord if you guys wanted to check it out. But they're doing a kind of like a meeting slash gathering about hacking satellites. So that ties straight into
Ooh,
that's gonna be fun. I know that's gonna be
Yeah,
fun.
that's
I'm
gonna be
I'm
very
looking
interesting.
forward to
yeah,
that.
that'll be cool.
sounds informative. Cause I definitely like to see how that could affect the cyber world, like as far as with attackers and how we could also close it off to secure it.
Pen testing,
But
pen testing a satellite company.
right, that just
That
sounds
sounds
fun.
fun.
Yeah, that
Like,
does
hey
sound cool.
yo,
So another thing I wanted to throw up, I know we've got Starlink, and as a future podcast coming up, hint hint, we will be doing one with AI. But as far as changes in the industry goes, there's been a lot of kind of heat thrown around AI with software development, as well as like logistics of will it really take over or will it just kind of raise everyone up. But Devin and Devin is supposed to be for an AI for software development. I can read the this is kind of like their memo. Their thing is Devin is a tireless, skilled teammate, equally ready to build alongside you and independently complete tasks for you. With Devin, engineers can focus on more interesting topics and strive for more ambitious goals. So they're kind of saying Devin is going to be like a teammate almost, I guess, maybe a partner with your software development. I wanted to know your guys' thoughts of would that take away from jobs or would that just elevate the industry as a whole? And what are the timetables of, what it could actually do? Because as we know with ChatGPT, it can program simple things. It can write simple PowerShell scripts. It can write simple Bash scripts for you. It can code simple games in HTML and CSS, Java, Python, but it can't do like enterprise, large level scale software development, which I think is what Devin is more going towards.
Yeah, so that's interesting.
What's the question?
Like what do you see as Devin doing to the industry? What is the change? Are we losing jobs? Could we gain jobs? Is it just for help?
We're definitely losing jobs. I mean, there's gonna be when you take out those simpler tasks, it's less to be done. They're leaving like it's just complex stuff left. So it's like or more complex stuff. So I mean, I feel like job loss is inevitable with that. Especially with those things that are automated. Anything that can be automated or that's very repetitive, or if you know what you're gonna do tomorrow. Like if you go to work tomorrow, you know exactly what you're about to do, exactly how it's about to go. That job can be automated.
So do you think it should be?
I'm not really sure as far as it should be. Me personally, that's something I gotta think of. Should it be? Because that's
question.
Really moving more into right or wrong.
Yeah, it brings the ethics into it, which
right.
I was gonna say as far as this is like another question or ethics conversation that you could really think about there. Those that are listening to the podcast right now is if these tools are a thing, if we've already heard of them, then it's not a question of will they come to be. Yes, they will. The quality of it or whether it'll be good or not is depending on, when it comes out. But do you think that companies are going to hesitate to replace people as far as money? I mean, we know this is a money hungry world. As soon as Devin comes out, if they have a software developer, they're paying 140 grand a year, or they could just pay, $20 a month to do it and it does the same jobs. I mean, should these tools be made? Because I think the obvious answer would be immediately. They're kicking them out. Like they're replacing them, $20 a month.
But then their ethics are challenged as well.
But I mean,
their
ethics are money.
Really operate on ethics,
but not all companies are like that though. Not all true. Companies are money hungry companies. Like
this is true, but the moment they become publicly traded, they're legally required to be.
I don't think they're gonna kick them out immediately. I think they're gonna test it, see how it works, and then from there go on.
So what would you guys do if it was your company and you had the choice? You're a smaller, medium-sized independent company. I know I've talked about this question with Bob, as was in previous podcast. This wasn't in the podcast, but what would you guys do? What would be your first step if you were, you sort of monetarily challenged because you're a small or medium-sized business? You know how it goes with those businesses. It's, some months you could make a bunch, some months you don't. And you have a startup company and you're paying a software developer, let's just say 120 grand a year. They do a good job, they're very well, but then you realize Devin could be doing some of the same things with that. Do you have a sit down with them and talk to them about possibly using it to elevate them? Do you say, I'm sorry, but for the money, we got to do this for now? How would you guys go about that?
I feel like this all goes back to the ethics of the company itself. like if your goal
But
and your objective was to just gross as much money as possible, that's gonna be a no brainer. But if your objective was the betterment of humans to give people opportunities to make money, and your objective is to have a community of people and you enjoy that, it depends on your objective and what really is why you are doing what you're doing. Like I feel like this is all ethical. It's all got to do with your philosophy of
there's
how you
definitely more
live.
to this than ethics. Um, not that I disagree with you because I see where you're coming. Um, but an issue that I could see companies running into, and you'll have companies doing both of these things, right? You're gonna have some who are just like, oh well, we don't need our programs anymore. Bye. And you're gonna have the smarter companies who are gonna keep them around. The reason I say smarter is, um, in a more long-term uh, sense, if you don't have those entry jobs, which is those are the very first jobs that will be cut, followed by mid-tier jobs, and maybe even eventually the high-level developers could even be cut at some point. Um, but if you don't have those low and mid-levels jobs, you lose the training ground for talented programmers. So if you ever wanted to have that brilliant programmer who sets your company apart from all the others because they are just all that, well, you're not going to have those guys anymore because those jobs don't exist anymore.
I see what you're saying. I see where you're going.
Most
You know,
definitely.
That's a good. I
um,
didn't think about that. That's a good
Yeah,
point.
that's a good point.
That's a
so
good
unless you
point.
get to a point where the AI is really that can actually think innovatively and not just be handed a set of complicated instructions, but actually be like creative and come up with new solutions to problems that solutions that have not really in any popular way come up yet. Unless the AI can do that, you need those very talented programmers.
I honestly think that, in my opinion, even though most companies, as we know, are not started from a heart of the betterment of society, most of them
What are
are
you
to make
talking
money, which is absolute, like, obviously, you got to make money. We know that.
Yeah,
But
but
I
there's
think
also
that
a
if you had a
line of like
talk with them,
too
you could be
much.
like, all right, we have Devin, we're going to do this. But then you could say, just have you focus on more in depth things. Uh, maybe have Devin do your everyday tasks and stuff like that. Because in my mind, I don't immediately think, obviously, when this tool comes out, it's not going to be enterprise ready. Even if it is, it's going to have
Yeah.
hiccups. I think honestly, you have your people you're paying go out there and do really intricate things and spend their time perfecting. And then Devin is kind of like it takes it maybe would cut down on the time. So therefore, you're making more money spending less time. Maybe it
Mhm.
just helps companies make more money as a whole and better content, as in, rises up the whole software development field. I feel like that's what it would do. Best comes to best, maybe. I don't know how that's, obviously, I can't predict the future, but I'm assuming
Yeah.
maybe it'll just be for the betterment of society. Maybe these tools will actually help and not just replace. Because, like you said, whenever you can tell apart a company from, let's just say, 15 companies use Devon, and you could kind of tell, and then you had that one company that didn't, and they had like
Mhm.
a unique craft, they probably gonna end up making more money. So I think as a whole, it will just like, it'll be a tool. Hopefully, it'll be a tool like it's supposed to.
I'm hopeful for that. I think, and I know different people have different opinions on this kind of thing, but I think unless AI is regulated in a meaningful kind of way, I think it's going to be a huge problem. But I also think it's going to be regulated in a meaningful way because it's going to be a huge problem.
Mm. Uh, my thoughts on it, right? Because I'm not a software engineer, so I don't
Yeah.
know a whole lot. But my thoughts on it, just simply from the business side of things, I'm gonna see there's gonna be a whole bunch of people, or like a whole bunch of businesses gonna drop programmers and then
Hmm.
quickly realize their mistakes and rehire. At least that's what I see happening in the future. Is like they're gonna be like, oh, we can save a bunch of money. We'll just fire all the programmers. We don't need them. And then they're
Hmm.
gonna be like, oh crap, we shouldn't have done that. At least in the current level of AI and stuff, right, is they can't do everything themselves. They need someone that knows what they're doing to put in those prompts and to get what you actually want out of those AIs, right? You see it in ChatGPT too. Is like if you put in the prompt in a way that doesn't quite work, you're not going to get the output you want. for like the scripts and stuff you do for PowerShell or for Bash. You kind of need to have someone know what they're talking about, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, in my opinion, at least as of right now, there shouldn't be any firing of programmers or software development people.
especially when it
And
first comes out.
yeah, especially when it first comes out. In the sense of like, also, those companies are going to lose money because they don't have those people, right? That they'll think they'll gain money, but I don't think they really will in the grand scheme of things. At least when it first comes out, right? But that's my opinion on it.
All right,
Yeah.
I got another topic here. I think you guys would find it. Does anyone have anything else with like the whole software development with Devin?
Um, just kind of an addition to what Nate was saying is, uh, like I could see this sort of being in a way though, like an end of the golden age for programmers, because I do think that every company, because I think every company will at least thin out the ranks of
Yeah, 100%,
programmers.
100%.
Because anything that basically equates to coding busy work that has stuff that's got to be done, but it's nothing fancy or complicated. I think most of those jobs will be automated away by AI, and they'll keep a couple around as that training ground, but they won't be worried about training 50 people. It'll be 15 people
But Devin could train. It could do the training for you.
to an
I
extent.
mean,
Yeah.
it could be a good because think about like for I let's just say you're coding a basic web, and I don't even mean coding because I mean it's markup language, so it's not really
Mhm.
coding. But if you're doing a basic website with some HTML and CSS, ChatGPT can easily make that HTML little bracket for you and show you kind of a list going from
Kind of be like
HTML
an
to title to
autocomplete.
body to HTML and end it off,
Yeah.
and then it could give you a little bit of standard for the structure of CSS. It could teach you that, and it can do those automation. I just feel like with Devin getting really popular, like you said, the automation will definitely come into play.
I just I don't know if it'll work well for training people because I know a lot of people the second they get a tool that automates their task for them, and I can't say I blame them, but they're not going to learn that task that's being automated. So why would you learn proper CSS code and how to do it right when the AI does 95% of it for you?
Yeah, that's true.
That was my thoughts. I was like, yeah, the whole basis of automation is so that machines or whatever can do things for you that you don't have to do. So are you gonna focus on learning every little bit of programming that an AI is teaching you, or are you just gonna let it do its thing and be like, hey, I'll learn the higher end stuff, but then you kind of struggle doing that because you don't know any of the lower end stuff.
Hmm.
So I don't know.
Yeah. But it's one of those frontier things where there's definitely a lot of wait and see.
Yeah,
All
100%.
right. Well, I've got a kind of an ender here for us,
Okay.
which I didn't prep any, no prepping for this. Going to be kind of a just a random question, but I think this is going to tie in great. I don't know that our next episode will be about AI. It may be, obviously, we'll probably have some multiple episodes. Hopefully, get some people that actually work with AI and maybe are in the career for it at some point. But as this episode of change, shout out to Chance, by the way. Chance brought up this amazing idea for change because it pertains a lot because as we know, IT is always changing. But AI with school. I wanted to see what your guys' thoughts of how school is going to change with
Mm.
AI, and is it for the better or for the worse? Maybe throw in a little ethics in there if you want. But what do you guys think?
I mean, we can already see from ChatGPT how much it has changed. I know for me, like coming into this school year, mentioned it to a lot of people, and some people like actually learn. I feel like it's really about how you use it. It's all a tool. At the end of the day, that's why we build it. It's all on how you use it. Because I can still type in the answer to ChatGPT, the question, and I can still sit there, read the question, digest it. Maybe I just need a deeper understanding or I needed a better explanation. And I can still learn from me typing in the question and getting the answer. But I mean, it just depends on how you use it. That's how I see it.
I think I agree with Chance. It's one of those tools, at least Chat GPT specifically. Maybe at some point they'll come out with a AI that is geared towards schools, so it can sort of walk you through the process you need without just being like, here's your answer, bye.
Doesn't write your paper for you.
Yeah, it doesn't write your paper for you, but it gives you some guidelines, gives you some ideas, helps you brainstorm. But as it is today with ChatGPT, it's all about how you use it. You can use it to just get your answer and just be like, copy, paste, done, moving on. I've learned nothing. Or you have a problem you actually struggle with. You use ChatGPT either to walk you through the steps or maybe to give you an answer, but by giving you the answer, you're also learning the steps you need to face that problem in future on your own. But you can't, it should be a guiding tool, not a hold your hand and walk you through this. You can't use it in a dependent kind of way. You need to use it as assistive tool to benefit the learning of topics you're struggling with.
I think that
Like I think of it as like a second teacher.
absolutely.
Use it as a second teacher if you don't really understand it that well.
This is the way that I put it in my brain that works, and I don't know if this is, you guys can give me a this is whack or not, but it's kind of like a kid with a cookie jar.
Yeah.
If you tell them no, you tell them absolutely not. That is a no-go zone. You do not go to that cookie jar. They're gonna end up breaking in the cookie jar. Like, it's gonna happen. They're gonna do it. It's like you hold a treat in front of a dog. Eventually, it don't matter what you tell that dog, it's gonna do it. And that may be a terrible analogy. I'm just saying, I know from New York's perspective, I think they had a couple high schools there in New York that banned ChatGPT, and it actually increased the use of ChatGPT because people realized they could just use their phones.
Yeah.
ChatGPT
So what?
it. I mean, just easily go through and do it. But if you use ChatGPT as a tool, I mean, it's like when calculators. A lot of teachers hated calculators, and they realized, but it's just a tool. You still have to learn how to do it. Just a calculator makes it easier. ChatGPT could make it easier, but I feel like in English, there's only certain classes where I would really kind of worry because like ChatGPT could make your English paper for you. And there's no reliable tools. I know there's some teachers out there that are 100% bluffing. ChatGPT tools that analyze the text and act and see if it's those don't work. They do not work.
Yeah,
they are
they do not work.
Persistent at all. No persistence.
They pretty much just assume guilt all the time.
Yeah.
Like many of them have been tested, and you paste like a passage from the Bible into it. And it's like, yep, AI wrote this. Like,
yeah, okay.
It's like that. Like whatever you believe is irrelevant in that matter. It's just like an AI did not write. Plain simple done.
Yeah. So my whole opinion on this, right, is like thinking of it from objectively from like when I was in high school. If I had ChatGPT, I hated writing my own papers. I absolutely hated it. So would I have abused this as a teen to write my papers for me?
Probably.
I think I 100% would have. Yeah. Nowadays, where I'm like, oh, I actually want to learn the stuff that I'm going to school for. I actually want to learn how to, uh, go through penetration testing and hacking. I actually want to learn cybersecurity in that regard. And I want to learn like networking, all that kind of stuff. I want to learn, right? So I'm using ChatGPT as the second teacher to help me, either if I need commands or whatnot. I'll be like, hey, ChatGPT, could you give me this command? And then I'll be like, okay, I'm going to keep that command and probably put it in my notes so that I can use it for later. So it's like a different way, and I'm pretty sure
it shows you parameters, by the way, just as a button. ChatGPT, as you were saying with coding, shows you parameters. So if you give it an nmap command with -sc and -sv, it'll tell you that's for common services and common versions.
Yeah, so it's really helpful in like telling you what kind of commands do what, which is also just useful if you want to be like, I've used this command before. I'm not 100% sure what it does. Hey, ChatGPT, tell me, So it can help you in that regard too. But I'm just thinking objectively, if I was a teen in this era, I 100%, it's like high school. I don't care. I'm just going to use ChatGPT to write my paper. Like, why not?
Yeah.
Do you think this will decrease plagiarism?
Well, yeah, because you could just use ChatGPT.
I mean,
like
instead
all the
of
people...
them copying from Wikipedia and then changing it a little bit. I mean,
I
technically it would.
disagree because to me, AI by its nature
Plagiarizes.
plagiarizes
Is
constantly.
people? I see.
Yeah, but can you consider
it's
plagiarism
changed.
like can you consider using ChatGPT as plagiarism? Can
And
you
there
do that?
we
I'm
have
not
a
sure.
legal argument that is
Yeah.
being argued today. But I would say morally and ethically, yes, it is.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I would probably consider morally and ethically, but can it be like described as that in a learning situation? I don't
think
know.
we'll get into that in
I
the
think-
AI podcast for sure. The
I
whole
think so,
ethics
yeah.
with
I-
using other people's work inside of that, because we know ChatGPT learns off of. I mean, it's a generative pre-trained transformer, so it learns off of human feedback, aka what they inject into it.
Yeah. I'm excited for next episode. This will be cool.
Yeah.
Talking about
AI is such an interesting, messy topic.
Maybe
It's wonderful,
next episode.
and I hate it. And
Well,
love it.
maybe next episode.
And it will be broken in. I'm sure we'll have more than one AI episode.
100%.
Yeah.
But is there anything you guys, Ricky Chance? Once again, we had Nate, Ricky Chance, and John in here with us. Anything else you guys have before we end it off on this episode about change?
I think we did a pretty good job covering what we went over. I think there's always more to talk about with change, just because we live in a constantly changing world, and IT, bless my heart, IT especially is just constantly changing so
Evolving. Yep.
fast.
Imagine what
Yep.
this podcast would have been like 5 years ago.
Yeah. It's crazy to think about.
I mean, it would have been a lot different. All right,
I
well,
want to
this
say a
is
message to those kids out there with using the chat GPT.
okay.
Y'all better not, hey, don't be out there you cheating on your essays, getting all the answers to the, hey, but listen, but skills pay the bills. You know what I'm saying?
GPT
It's not about
responsibility.
getting the
Good.
paper turned in. It's about learning how to articulate your thoughts. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Yep.
So-
Yep.
I agree.
Yeah.
Even though it seems like the cookie jar is just a feet away. You know what I'm saying? You
The
gotta.
second you get into the real world, everyone will realize
Yeah.
that the only thing you know is how to search something in ChatGPT, and then you'll
There
look
you go.
really stupid.
You're a really good prompt engineer.
Yeah.
All right, well, this was the episode on change in IT and education for Cyber Chronicles. Once again, you have myself, Landon, Nate,
Nate.
and John, Ricky, and Chance.
Been an honor.
Pleasure.
Been an honor.
And that wraps up another enlightening episode of Cyber Chronicles.
We hope you have enjoyed exploring the ever-evolving landscape of technology with us today.
If you have feedback, questions, suggestions for future episodes, we'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment if available, or check the description to find more information about the podcast guests and social media channels.
Until next time, stay curious, stay connected, and keep embracing the future.
This is Landon.
And this is Nate, signing off from Cyber Chronicles.